exactly does bound for glory even mean? I don't know why I think these things, but it popped into my head while I was watching the event, so I thought, okay, I'm going to go on that there Google machine, and I'm going to get the exact definitions. Now, of course, bound is like a leap. 4, we don't need to worry about 4, 4 is just 4, and glory is an achievement, so I think we should change the name to Leap for Achievement. Thanks. But my name is Simon Miller, this is What Culture Wrestling, and Impact's big pay-per-view is now in the books, so we have to take this, the finger of power, and we have to give the good bits an up, and the bad bits are down. You'll disagree with me, you'll get mad in the comments, but then we'll hug virtually, and we'll hug digitally, and we'll do it again in the week. Let's get ready for Bound for Glory, Leap for Achievement, ups and downs. First thing we saw on the pay-per-view was the 6-way for the X Division title. So you had the champion Rohit Raju, and he was going against TJP, Willie Mack, Jordynne Grace, Trey Miguel, and of course Chris Bay. And look, this was always going to be nuts. This was always going to be ridiculous. Tick those 2 boxes and give it up. Of course, everybody went after Rohit straight away because he's just been such a numpty up to this point. But when they were trying to get shots in, they accidentally hit each other. And then that person turned around like, what are you doing, man? Even though that was always going to happen because it's a professional wrestling match. Before long, they're all just having one big fight. TJP, Chris Bay and Trey Miguel then just set off at their crazy pace and started doing all these nuts athletic moves that I was watching like I couldn't even dream about doing this, and they're doing it like it's the equivalent of going to the toilet. And we also had some like big person spots between Willie Mack and Jordynne Grace. I really like it. I'm not gonna lie, the whole time I was pulling for Jordynne, I thought it would have been a nice twist. TJP at one moment I think had everybody else in one submission move, like it didn't really make sense to my brain. It looked a little bit like a Rubik's Cube, and then before long we were back to kicking Rohit Raju's ass, because again, he's a massive Poindexter. We then went into dive mode and we had the Tower of Doom spot, which is always impressive, and I did think at this point, if you had decided to make your own debut for Impact Wrestling in terms of being a viewer on this evening, I think you would have been pretty damn impressed. Everybody then hit their big moves when, surprise, surprise, Rohit Raju, that damn Mother Hubbard, did what he always does, and he stole the pin. It looked like TJP was gonna win because he hit the Mamba Splash on Trey Miguel, but no, there was Rohit. He hit the knee on TJP, out he went. Poor Miguel was there for the taking. 1, 2, 3, still your X Division champ. That guy. On the down low, this story is actually working because I was genuinely annoyed, like, oh, someone's got to beat him. So when he does lose it, it is going to be a joyous day. We had some nonsense between Rosemary and Johnny Bravo, and like some idiot, I thought the wedding was taking place on the pay-per-view, but it's not. It's next week on Impact, so we'll have to wait and see. And then, yes, we may have got the most hilarious moment of all of 2020, and that is saying something. Because Rhino and Heath were backstage hyping themselves up for the Call Your Shot Battle Royal, when halfway through, you just heard from nowhere, like the producer or director go, all right guys, let's do another one. And then they did another take. Impact forgot to take this out. It was one of the most awkward things I've ever seen, but I was laughing my ass off. So please, if we can have more of this, that would be great. We can call it accidental wrestling, and then we had the Call Your Shot Battle Royal, and this was just a barrel of fun. Like when you shoot the fishes, give it up. The winner of the whole thing couldn't call their shot on any of the championships within Impact Wrestling, so in other words, they get to challenge for it. But of course, the spin here was that if Rhino and Heath didn't win, not only is Heath not getting a contract with Impact Wrestling, but Rhino would be fired. Ruh-roh. And if you're new to proceedings, it's basically just a Raw Rumble, so Rhino is in at number 1, but we also did have some prizes. Hornswoggle has come back to Impact, so has Daivari, and kind of, well, surprisingly, at least from my point of view, so did James Storm. I didn't see that coming. Tennille Dashwood was also in this, and there was this very nice moment when she kind of came to the ring, surveyed the situation, was like, nah man, I don't want to get in there. So she pushed Caleb with a K into it all instead, and then when Havoc arrived, she didn't give 2 hoots. She was like, I will fight anyone. Someone just get in my face. I don't know why I'm doing Popeye arms. Tommy Dreamer arrived with Road Warrior Animal Facepaint, and I thought that was a very nice and loving tribute. And he went straight after Brian Myers, which I also appreciated because, of course, those two are feuding. And you may roll your eyes at that, but I have seen plenty of Raw Rumbles, Battle Royals, whatever you want to call it, when the two guys in a program ignore each other And it's like, well, you just a couple of morons. Miles was on fire during all of this as well, because at one point he pretended he wanted to take a picture with Tenille, because, you know, she's really into her photography, but instead he chucked her out. I thought that was really funny. There was a terrifying elimination when Kira Hogan kind of got eliminated and she crashed into Tasha Steelz and they crashed into a trash can. That didn't look like it was meant to happen at all. And then we had to have all this madness, all this nonsense with Fallah Bahh, Hernandez, and that stolen cash. I mean, what is going on? Now, obviously these two are eyeing each other up, going back to, well, I don't like you and you don't like me, so now we're in this big match and we better have a fight about it. But after they did do that and the money escaped Fallah Bahh and went to the outside, he decided he would rather have the moolah than try and win this match. So he eliminated himself. And then Hernandez, who wanted to whoop his ass, he eliminated himself. I just thought it was stupid. I thought it was really stupid. It was really dumb. I actually said out loud, well, that was stupid and that was dumb. And when you get stupid and dumb, you get it down. The final two were Rhino and Sammy Callahan. So I was on the edge of my seat going, oh, Rhino, you've got to win this. You've got to do it for Heath and you've got to do it for you. Maybe if Sammy Callahan hadn't been so obsessed with weapons, he would have actually come out the victor. But instead, no, he wanted to slam Rhino with a chair. The ref stopped him. We got a gore. 1, 2, 3. Thank everything. Rhino stays in Impact. And more importantly, Heath is officially part of the show. As a quick side note, I think that Heath may have actually been injured throughout all of this. He did post something on his Instagram and his Twitter that seemed like he was in the hospital. So mainly, I hope he's okay. And once again, doesn't that sum up 2020? You get all of this good, but then it's bookended with bad. The North were then interviewed backstage and they said that they were going to win the tag team titles later. And I was like, yeah, what else did you expect to come out of their mouths? And then we moved on to EC3 versus Moose. Now it should come as no surprise that this was a cinematic match. I mean, given everything they've done, what else could you possibly do? And I really did appreciate the creativity and I really did appreciate the change of pace. So for those two factors, it can have it up. With all that said, I don't know, man, I didn't really click with this. Like, we're in some kind of warehouse where a wrestling ring was set up and all of EC3's hooded goons were on the outside and they kept hitting the ring mat while chanting. And they kind of did it in time to the music, which I presume they couldn't hear, but they did. So it's a bit like, ah, hey, oh, ah, ah. And I was just like, oh my goodness, what is going on? EC3 also got distracted at one point because he was having flashbacks, but we, the audience, could see the flashbacks. So I was like, am I in EC3's mind? I mean, I have absolutely no idea. And I think the major takeaway is that Ethan has done all of this because he wanted Moose's narrative to be him becoming the face of Impact Wrestling. I think. Because much like the Emperor in Star Wars, he wanted Moose to strike him down, which is essentially what happened. I mean, towards the end of this, Moose was just beating the holy hell out of him. And because Moose was wearing all white, and because Ethan Carter III was bleeding all over the place, well, it was quite a disturbing visual. It did end as well with Moose slamming EC3 in the head with the Impact title and winning, if you are able to win. And now I do believe he is going to get a major push. And what's going to happen to EC3, I don't know. So I was massively intrigued by it, but again, if you came up to me in the street and say, Simon, I'm going to kill you unless you can explain all of it, I'd be like, well, you better pull that trigger, because I don't think I'm able to do it. Still, Moose does have his belt back, and I guess I do want to see what's going to happen on Tuesday, but ultimately, this left me feeling like a shell of a man, like my innards had escaped my body, so it's got to get it down. We then saw The Rock on Impact in 2020. There's that year again. But of course, it was from the pre-show where he inducted Ken Shamrock into the Impact Hall of Fame. And who the hell knows what else is next? Maybe Brad Pitt is going to become WCW champion. Once again, that doesn't make any sense. And why did we see this at this point? Well, it was then Eddie Edwards versus Ken Shamrock. No word of a lie, I really dug it up. Now, we always do have to talk about the fact that Ken is in his mid-50s, because that does make anything he does even more impressive. But also, I think Eddie Edwards has sat back here and gone, well, what do people want to see from Ken Shamrock? And also, yeah, you know, he's getting up there in age. Why don't we basically make this like an MMA fight? They did. They really laid their shib in. And I had a very, very good time. In fact, sometimes I think it worked too well, because honestly, some of these shots, I was like going, ow, ow, they're actually striking, or if not, they're doing a good job of pretending. Also, because Eddie Edwards was getting his ass kicked, eventually he went, wait, I'm a pro wrestler, I should do that. So he was hitting blue thunder bombs, he was going off the top with missile drop kicks. This was a really good back and forth. The issue that Edwards was having, though, is that Sammy Callahan was on the outside, even though he had lost earlier. And of course, before all was said and done, He got on the apron, he used his phone, he hacked the lights and poofed, off they went. It got even worse because when they came back on, Sammy Callahan had a bat in his hand, and we all know what happens when Sammy Callahan has a bat and he's attacking Eddie Edwards. Skulls explode and eyes die. It's all very Rey Mysterio. Somehow by magic though, Eddie also had a weapon, and it was a kendo stick. Now this was absolutely ruined by the commentators who went, oh, it's Kenny the kendo stick or something like that. And I can't stand it when we need weapons. It makes me feel like I'm watching Sesame Street. Fortunately, Eddie Edwards then forgot he wasn't wrestling Sammy Callahan. He was wrestling Ken Shamrock. He was up on his feet. And then it was the end. Because he managed to take him down and locked in the ankle lock, which meant Eddie Edwards had to tap out. So your winners were Ken Shamrock and technically by proxy, Sammy Callahan. So you could argue that Eddie Edwards got screwed here. You can absolutely continue this feud. Secretly one of the best things on the show. It was then a match that I'd been looking forward to for ages, the 4-way for the tag team titles. And it didn't let me down, unlike I have let my parents down. And therefore, is getting it up. There was a really interesting twist early on because Shelley, he of Motor City Machine Guns fame and one half of the tag team champions, was taken out of this after he got pile-drived on the rampway. But it's not like we did wrestling stereotypes when he came back later for the big reveal or the big comeback. No, he was out, he was done, leaving Chris Sabin to become the biggest hero of the evening and had to go in a tag team match for like 72 minutes, wasn't that long, all by himself. He actually tried to stay in the whole time too until he realized, man, I'm getting my ass kicked way too much here. I've got to take a rest. And he tagged in the Good Brothers and they ran wild, including a very good bit between Gallows and Madman Fulton. When those two are in the ring, they just hit slabs out of each other. Human beings ain't made of slabs. It worked really well though because you kind of merged all elements of wrestling here. You had your high flying stuff, you had your more traditional stuff, you had your ground game. Everybody was bringing something different to the table. The North kept trying to finish Sabin off, but he wouldn't stay down, so he wins the Legend of the Year award. But all it did was piss off Ethan Page and Josh Alexander. Because given that they couldn't win with moves, Ethan Page got the tag team title. He clocked Anderson right in the head. That made him all dizzy. It allowed Josh to pin him because the ref was an idiot and saw nothing. So your brand new tag team champions are the North. And yes, look, that was kind of a crappy finish, but I think that was the point because these guys are such assholes and they celebrated like they'd just been told they had a lifetime's worth of free pizza. Also, you have a built-in rematch here. The Motor City Machine Guns, well, they have a pretty big claim. There was more wedding stuff after this because Rosemary and Havoc were off to go and try and revive James Mitchell. Wrestling is just wild, isn't it? But there was more like, what's that all about? Because Taya Valkyrie was then saying to Johnny Bravo, oh, what's she gonna do when she finds out about some kind of penguins that are gonna walk the aisle? And Johnny Bravo put on his like big man pants. He's like, well, I'm the man in the relationship. She'll have to listen to me. So he is definitely going to get his. Once again on the down low, I'm very excited about this wedding being over. Right, Deonna Purrazzo versus Kylie Rae for the Impact Knockout Women's Division title. As we now know in the cold light of day, it certainly seems like Kylie Rae got injured at some point over the last few days and she wasn't able to compete. That always sucks. There's no good to come out of this, and obviously we here at What Culture Wrestling send her good positive thoughts and good positive vibes. But if you were like me, well, one, you're bald, but two, you were also really excited about this match. Impact had done a terrific job in the build, so as soon as you found out you weren't going to get it, well, it was just sadness and it was just disappointment, especially because in the world of kayfabe, the reason was, well, Kylie Rae just didn't show up. Down. As for the replacement in the match too, it just wasn't the same. Like, it did tie into the story because it was Su Yung and she has returned after Kimberly and Deonna Purrazzo absolutely ruined Susie a few weeks ago, and she even went on to win the women's title because we should have been doing this a month down the line and maybe even doing Su Yung versus Kylie Rae. You could have spun that way if you want. Again, I just watched the whole thing going, well, it's fine. And it's nobody involved's fault. I mean, these things happen, but I just can't get into it. So ultimately, it made me a sad panda. I never want to be a sad panda. I always want to be a happy panda. But again, it's just pro wrestling. It doesn't matter. I just hope everybody involved is okay. What made up for all of that, though, was the main event. I mean, it was wonderful. Beforehand, we also learned that the women's tag team belts are coming back, so that's going to be cool. And when it came to the match itself, I had been, over the last few weeks, going, well, you don't really want to take it off Eric Young because he only just became the champion and he's quite good at it. But also, you have to make Rich Swann your champion because he needs his big babyface comeback and he's so easy to like. I did not know what direction we were going to go. We did, however, go with the latter, and we made Rich Swann the champion, and as it turned out, this was as satisfying as ice cream on a hot day, or a cold day, or basically any day. Young went after Swann's wounded knee for obvious reasons, but it got even worse for the challenger when he basically landed on his head and screwed up his neck. And because Eric Young is insane, he was like, okay, great. Well, now not only will I work on your knee, I'll also work over on your neck. It did not look good for Rich. Swann's selling as well is so good, even I was shouting from my sofa, somebody stop the damn match, because he looked like he was in so much pain. That just tied into the finish even more. It also fueled Eric Young as he just started strutting around the ring and even yelling into the camera at one point like he didn't care, as if he thought, well, I've got all this sewn up. But as it turns up, that's also what engages Rich Swann, because he was back on his feet and he just started to kick the crap out of Eric Young. And given everything that he's been through, it was like, oh, finally, you get him and you get him good. So it was just good, enjoyable wrestling action, and it did finish when Rich Swann hit the lethal injection, he hit the Phoenix Splash, he got the 1, 2, 3. Everybody and their dog was overjoyed about this, including the Impact locker room, who spilled out and celebrated as Rich Swann held his new world title aloft. And again, Rich Swann, world champion, and you couldn't argue it any other way. As ever, the only real shame was that there were no fans, because that would have just made it a superb moment, but it was a great finish to what was otherwise a decent pay-per-view. But did I have fun? You know what? I did, and is getting it up. Now, don't forget to leave a comment below and let us know what you thought about Leap for Achievement. Like the video, share the video, subscribe to the channel. Head over to WhatCulture.com and read yourself some articles. Follow What Culture on Twitter, WhatCultureWWE, and watch more videos here on What Culture Wrestling. My name is Simon from What Culture, and the ups and downs never stop. If you're watching this on Sunday, I'll see you tomorrow when we up those downs for Hell in a Cell, and that video may only be about 5 minutes, because WWE still hasn't announced any matches. See ya.